Hello there.
This is where the fun begins.
What's up guys, Unofficial Star Wars here. Hope you're all doing well, and in this video we have an overall new update here about Star Wars Outlaws, some new anticipations, some new reveals, and some new teases for the upcoming Star Wars video game. Of course, we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna hop right on into it, breaking it all down for you guys, everything that we know, and everything that we're anticipating right now. Before we do though, however, grab the subscribe button if you haven't already, as we're discussing and covering all types of Star Wars related news, leaks, rumors, theories, and breakdowns here on the channel. So if you guys are into any of that, go ahead and grab the subscribe button today. In this video, we are going to be taking a quick read from one of my favorites out there, StarWarsNewsNet.com. I'll have their article linked in the description down below for you guys to check out there as well. Now, my last update here about Star Wars Outlaws on the channel a couple of weeks ago now wasn't the best video or the best update because it just wasn't the best news about Star Wars Outlaws. It's nothing about or against even the game itself. It's simply the business side of things and the strategies that Disney and Ubisoft are all kind of taking to really roll this video game out. And it's not just me speaking, it's a lot of Star Wars fans out there speaking that are just kind of against this whole idea of how, you know, Ubisoft and Disney are going about kind of releasing the actual game. It's a bit confusing. And, well, yeah, we'll kind of leave it at that. The Star Wars Outlaws developers, Massive Entertainment, have done another interview recently speaking about the highly anticipated Star Wars video game, calling the game the ultimate scoundrel fantasy, and speaking in a bit more detail about Tashara and also some of the space combat that the game itself is going to provide to fans out there. So, in a recent interview with Game Informer, Associate Narrative Director John Borling had expanded on their desire to make a video game about the scoundrel archetype, saying that there, in quote, "We felt that one of the venues in Star Wars that, especially recently, hasn't been explored as much is that of a scoundrel character, a relatable character, a rookie kind of taking their first steps into the galaxy, exploring the world, and really getting involved with the people and different factions that make up the fabric of the galaxy. That was something that we knew very early on that we wanted to pursue, to have that personal story and really make this galaxy come to life." Ending that quote right there, kind of explaining into some detail of why they decided to go with a story that revolves around, you know, scoundrels and this underworld, and it's something that we haven't really seen all that much, very much so in the recent. It feels like we've only kind of scraped the mere surface of what a scoundrel story specifically could really offer, maybe with Han Solo, the solo Star Wars movie. Associate Art Director Marth Jonkers had also explained on how that thinking informed protagonist Kay Vess's art design, including a hairpin that you can use to lock pin doors, how that kind of comes to life and make it more creative actually to the bigger story itself. Saying that there, in quote, "We put a lot of care into her design and what she's wearing and how she looks to tell her story. She has a lot of different elements in her design that tell a bit of her story. For example, she has a broken nose, so she's been through a lot. And you can see that she has scars and stuff. She also has a hairpin. I love that element because she uses that throughout the game to lock pin doors, and you can also use that from the beginning to do some thieving." Ending that quote right there, really explaining into detail of how, well, every detail that's seen on the character herself of Kay Vess is there for a reason, really, is kind of what it's there for. Like, everything on her has a bit of a backstory and a reason, and that's something that of thought and detail that I really like, personally, and is something that I think that makes the story and the game itself all the much more and really worthwhile. Creative director Julian Gerlaiti had also talked about creating a game starring a scoundrel, mentioning how the character would navigate the world with a stealthy approach from the get-go. He then also addressed the elephant in the room, creating a scoundrel game that doesn't have Han Solo, or at least star Han Solo, saying this here, in quote, "A scrappy underdog is going to use every trick in the book to get out of a tricky situation. Sometimes a scoundrel should avoid getting into combat, so stealth became incredibly important for us to really incorporate that, and having the choice of going in with your guns or maybe sneaking around. That needs to be at the heart of every single encounter that we create." Now, once did Han Solo come up? We wanted to tell a different story with different main characters as well. Ending that quote right there, very, I guess, simple on that Han Solo explanation, kind of just saying that that wasn't really ever in the question of things, and that they just never really even thought about it. They kind of always wanted to go with a different, more original approach and character from the get-go there as well. He also heavily implies of that, like, every different kind of choice or decision you make is either stealth or is it going to go in guns blaring. This is something else that's been teased and kind of discussed and talked about plenty of times before about Star Wars Outlaws there as well. Now, while the subject of Han Solo never seems to have come up, the team did want to achieve that feel of a classic Star Wars story into the vein of the original trilogy. According to one of the developers, Borling, that says that there, in quote, "It should feel like a classic Métis story. Gripping conflicts and challenges wrapped in an explosive action, adventure, and suspense, but it's also a space opera. You have to have that emotional tension, that character-driven drama throughout the story itself as well." I mean, that quote right there, really implying that this story isn't all just action and different missions and everything of that nature. There's going to be a few cutscenes in there that has some of that character-driven drama, very much so, perfectly worded, just as he says there in that quote. Now, the art and world director, Benedict Panelsnik, had also added some extra insight into the visual detail that goes along with this, rendering the visual style to make it recognizable from the movies there as well, saying that there, in quote, "We wanted the game to be like a realistic rendering style with a filmic kind of treatment. The color grading materials and the camera effects to ensure that the authentic experience that we know from the original movies itself." Ending that quote right there. Really just discussing some of that detail and the reason why, once again, behind the different rendering styles and also this kind of film feel that they were also going for. Well, at least in the cutscenes there as well, and then how you kind of transport that or translate that into the actual gameplay itself there as well. How smooth is that kind of transition? And I think it is pretty dang smooth from what we've been able to see and tell from that gameplay itself as well. This overall interview seems to go on for a bit more. As I had mentioned from the beginning of this video, I have their article linked in the description down below if you guys like to check it out. The interview also goes on to mention how the reputation system and the duo of Kay and her pet Nix also kind of works, but it's mostly details that have been already covered in previous interviews. Notably, you cannot gain or lose reputation with the Empire, like with the criminal syndicates per se. Instead, they operate on a wanted system like in Grand Theft Auto, which increases in levels the more crimes you commit, per se. The article also mentions that Kay's speeder bike can be summoned at the press of a button, like in other Ubisoft open world games, maybe like Assassin's Creed lets you summon a horse with a single button press, for example. As we get closer to the summer, we should get another look at Star Wars Outlaws' overall story and the game itself, and more gameplay as well, as the game is anticipated to drop sometime in August of this year. Guys, let me know all of your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. I would love to hear what you guys are all thinking. Thanks so much for watching today's video. Of course, this has been Unofficial Star Wars. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a great one. May the Force be with you as always. Peace out.